morning. Now, if I said impact investing to you, how familiar would you be with that term? Well, the Times and the Sunday Times Scotland, along with the Scottish National Investment Bank, are bringing together those in the know for the Impact Investing Summit in Glasgow next week to discuss shaping and developing this approach to finance. I caught up with Willie Watt, chair of the Scottish National Investment Bank, to find out more.
Impact investing, I think, is an extension of sustainability and ESG investing into an area where the investor looks for real societal and environmental benefits from their investment. And it's not particularly well understood. And particularly in Scotland, it is a nascent investment area. And as a development bank that specialises in impact investing, we wanted to bring together a conference where leading UK practitioners could interface with local investors and local companies to really champion impact investing.
You mentioned there, Willie, that you don't think it's particularly understood. Why is that?
I mean, it's relatively new. As the term impact investing was coined only in 2007. And the principles were laid out around 2012. It represents only 2% of global institutional investment. And it gets jumbled up with ESG and sustainability and these other sort of positive investment types. And the words can sometimes be used almost interchangeably, but they do mean somewhat different things.
So just explain for people who are not familiar with this, how impact investing goes beyond then and is different to, say, the environmental, social and governance-based investing.
Yes, well, the ESG that you talk about is really about finding companies that are doing good things in those environmental, social and governance spaces, and then backing them. Impact investing takes that a stage further and says, we will invest in companies that are doing those good things, but we will expect specific impact returns. So those specific returns in a social investment could be to do with number of affordable housing spaces created. In an environmental sense, it could be around, carbon sequestered, or the generation of a particular amount of low carbon energy. So it's about measuring the impact, literally, of the investments that are made, not just in a financial sense, but also in a social and environmental sense.
I'm wondering how important you think this is now in the current climate. You know, we've just had the UN Climate Summit, COP27, come to an end. Hearing day on day talk about things such as, the cost of living crisis, the rise in energy costs that will be coming again next year. How important at the moment is this space?
Well, I think it's incredibly important because what it does is it provides a blueprint for how more of private sector investment could be channeled towards doing good as well as making money. And the scale of the financial requirements to create a low carbon future by 2050, or to deal with place-based inequality across the UK. These are huge numbers, and it'll only happen if the private sector invests in it. But to do that, we need to champion a way of investing in it that's actually going to address the problems that are there, rather than, say, for example, greenwashing, which is a problem that we read about in the newspapers. And I think impact investing combines those things in a really positive way.
Yeah, you've explained it in a very interesting way. And I'm just wondering if anybody is listening who is involved in in business and is interested in this, what would you say to them in terms of how to attract impact capital into their business?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is it's not just for social enterprises. And one of the misconceptions is that you have to be a social enterprise or a charity. Businesses that are there to make money and can access impact investment as long as they have hardwired into their business models positive impacts on one of the key criteria. In our case, those criteria are to do with low carbon, they're to do with innovation and technology, and they're to do with place-based inequality. So people, planet, and place is our remit, but other impact investors will have slightly different requirements. But I think if anyone's listening who's running a business that has those drivers as well as the profit motive, then impact investing may be for them.
Do you think this is about changing attitudes in a way in terms of how this is approached from businesses, by businesses rather?
Yeah, it definitely is. And, as we were saying earlier on in the call, it's not well understood in the investing world, and it's even well understood in the business world. So it's quite possible that the attitudes in business are really there's not sufficient connection between impact investors and the potential businesses in which they might invest. And part of the job of this conference is to attract in business people that run businesses and say, look, this may work for you, and we've got some great speakers, and it should be a really good event.
And just before we let you go, you're talking to us today from Edinburgh. So just briefly explain how impact investing is already making a difference across Scotland then.
Yeah, I mean, we've been running for about 2 years, in fact, exactly 2 years, and we've invested £300 million during that time in over 20 projects. A good example is a company called Lothian Broadband, which is providing rural broadband in the south of Scotland and the Highlands to homes and businesses that are way off being able to get commercial broadband. So we invested 20 million in that company, and that will help to provide super fast broadband to 70,000 locations in rural Scotland. And that makes a real difference to the ability to work from home, to access services, and to make those rural communities viable. So I think that's a good example of the kind of things that would be encompassed within impact investing.
Interesting to hear from Willie Watt, Chair of the Scottish National Investment Bank. And if you want to take part in the Impact Investment Summit, it's taking place next Tuesday morning at the Technology and Innovation Centre at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. Just head online to times-event.com and you can register there.